the Western world of business, the quadruple bottom line has become a super popular concept in recent decades. It gets at the idea that we should evaluate the performance of a business not only in terms of the traditional financial bottom line, that being profit, but also in terms of its social, cultural, and environmental impact. The key point then is that businesses should aim to be well-rounded and mindful of the various ways their activities shape the world for all of us. But in Te Ao Māori, the Māori world, this idea of thinking in lots of different ways about what it means for a group or organisation to succeed isn't new at all. In fact, it's an ancient ideal, and to understand why, we need to take a closer look at some key features of Māori culture. Like many cultures around the world, and especially indigenous ones, the traditional Māori worldview is one that views each person as part of a complex ecological and spiritual system. Nowhere do you see this more clearly than in the ancient Pakiwaitara, or legend, about how our world came to be. In the beginning, it's said the only two beings in existence were a couple, Papatuanuku, the Earth Mother, and Ranginui, the Sky Father. Together they produced many, many children who eventually grew tired of being squished between their parents and began to think of ways of splitting them apart. Eventually, it was Tāne Mahuta, the eldest child, who succeeded in making this happen, and in doing so, allowed himself and his siblings more room to live and grow, which ultimately produced our world as we know it today. That last part might seem a bit confusing. How did the growth of Rangi and Papa's children create our world? The answer to this question is that in Te Ao Māori, each of the children are regarded as atua, or gods, and many of these atua are associated with a certain aspect of the environment. Tāne Mahuta, for instance, is the god of the forest, Tawhiri Mātea, the god of the wind, Ruaumoko, who was said to be Rangi and Papa's unborn child at the time they split, is known as the god of earthquakes, with the shakes we feel around Aotearoa almost daily believed to be the result of little Ruaumoko continuing to kick around in his mother's womb. So, by giving these guardians of each part of the environment more room to grow, so too did our world. But how does all of this connect to the quadruple bottom line? Well, with so many different atua associated with the natural environment in Te Ao Māori, it becomes pretty tough to not consider them in pretty much anything that you do. When you go fishing, for instance, it's customary in Te Ao Māori to throw the first catch back to the sea as thanks to Tangaroa, the god of the sea. Similarly, before cutting down a tree or taking a piece of a plant, it's expected that one would say a karakia, a prayer to Tāne Mahuta. So while the idea of considering things like the natural environment might be relatively new and glamorous in Western businesses, it's something Māori and other indigenous cultures have been mindful of for a very, very long time. From a practical standpoint, it's vital to keep this in mind if you're working with or within a Māori business or organisation. This multifaceted way of viewing the world and assessing one's actions can have a major impact on the ways in which they choose to operate. It might mean, for example, that the business opts for certain projects or ways of doing things that, while less profitable financially, nevertheless have better social, cultural, or environmental outcomes. This example is also helpful in showing how management ideas and approaches that are hyped as new or groundbreaking in one culture, like the quadruple bottom line, are often enduring assumptions in another culture. Things that people don't even consider to be wisdom or a deliberate strategy, but just the way things have always been done. Because of this, it's likely that over the next few decades we'll increasingly see helpful concepts and practices from non-Western and indigenous cultures being imported into the Western business world. And while there are undoubtedly lots of positives and upsides to this, we all have to be careful that this happens in a way that's respectful and true to the original meaning of these ideas in their home culture.